My impression is very good so far. I always enjoy coming to Taiwan. You host great events, you've got a very modern venue, and there seems to be a lot of action taking place to address key ESG issues. And I think it's very impressive so far. So I started life as a consultant and had various roles, which I enjoyed very much and was very good background, but I wanted to give back in some way. And valuation is an area which is often not understood in terms of how integral it is to the economy. It's used for IPOs on stock exchanges, mergers and acquisitions, distressed assets. If you buy a house, you need a valuation. It's used for financial instruments. It's really important. And one of the issues in the global financial crisis was banks not necessarily understanding the value of the assets underpinning the loan books. So it's a really important issue that not everyone has given the recognition that it deserves. And so to help bring a global approach which is useful to investors, is useful to the public, is just something that I found, of great interest. So the intersection is very important, and it's quite a difficult question that you're asking, because the world is very messy when it comes to ESG in particular. At the moment, you have international sustainability standards, and it's great to see that Taiwan is one of the first 30 countries moving to adopt those. But it's more complicated than that, because you've got the EU version, there's the US version that's being rolled back now that Trump is in power. You have different perspectives around the world. What we would like to see is simplicity, so one global standard. So we're actually very much in favour of international sustainability standards. And then when you're an investor, the next question is, okay, so in a particular country, I have this regulation, I have these disclosures, I have these things to do in relation to ESG. What is the impact on the value of my company or the value of my assets? And so for us, it's something that is becoming increasingly important. So when we issued our latest standards, which became applicable in January of this year, it includes a number of ESG factors. But we are still a long way as a world from having the right consistent data around the world, the right adoption of international sustainability standards, and even a profession. And so everything is in development. So I think it's going to be messy for a few years, but it's going to become increasingly important in terms of valuation and how that can impact investor behavior. If you're a Hilton hotel chain, what do you do? What is the implication? You might have a lot of old stock of hotels. Do you retrofit? Do you sell those assets? What are the implications for new assets that you're going to buy? And every company has its own set of issues in relation to ESG factors, its supply chain, the environment that it works in, that sort of thing. I think that, the two are mutually useful. I would also reframe the question in terms of how do I see ESG standards moving to support international valuation standards. You can cut that both ways, because actually the more disclosures that we have through international sustainability standards, the more data will become available, the more that will impact investor behavior. And that might also vary depending on the geography of the investors. It might be that in the country between Canada and Mexico, investor behavior might have changed recently due to politics, or it might not. We have yet to see what really corporates do. But what we do know is that some investors have been focused on ESG factors for many, many years, even before it became a thing. And so you do have ethical investors out there. And so from our point of view, that data and information that we will get from better, more consistent global disclosures will help valuers understand the impact of these factors and be able to provide a better product to investors in terms of what decisions they should make, the value of their assets now, what the value of those assets could be if they take X, Y, or Z action. And so that information is really critical. Also, I think that what we'll see, certainly with some investor groups, is that better information flow in terms of understanding those ESG concepts will increase the buy-in. It'll increase people's interest in actually making sure they provide the right data, the right information. So it's a two-way street. Well, I see all the standards as interrelated. So we deliberately want the standards to be complementary to IFRS, to international sustainability standards, to international auditing and assurance standards. And if you look at the regulatory community, if we were to take IOSCO as an example, IOSCO brings together regulatory leaders from around the world that regulate 95% of the world's securities in 130 countries. IOSCO has called for a much stronger link between international valuation standards and international financial reporting standards. And so I believe that will help us evolve to having a truly global system. Valuation is also fragmented. Most countries have a reasonable real estate profession and standards that are usually IVS or very similar to IVS in places like that. Business valuation is a bit less so in terms of people are only catching up with the fact that intangibles and IP, which include ESG factors, are increasingly important. If you look at the S&P 500 in the United States and the market capitalization of that, you go back to the 1970s, 85% of that market capitalization was in real estate, so tangible assets. Now, 85 to 90% is in intangible assets. And so the role of the valuer is very important, but the world is only just catching up with this shift in terms of the types of assets that you have in different countries. And some countries are doing very well at that. Some have really got very good business valuation professions in place. Others, like Singapore, which is obviously a key financial center, intervened in the market to create a business valuation profession. But what we see with the momentum coming from what IOSCO wants and what is happening in terms of the increased recognition of IP, intangibles, that sort of thing, is a growing professionalization of that side of it, of valuation across the world. And, we hope that Taiwan, which took its first steps in recent years with ARDF joining IVSC, will continue to evolve its professionalism and use of standards in relation to this as well. So first of all, one of the things that we deliberately do is engage with many different types of stakeholders around the world. We created an investors forum that meets once every quarter, and that is worth over $23 trillion in terms of the participants. So the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world, the biggest private equity funds in the world, and the biggest pension funds in the world. So they really understand valuing internationally. And one of the things that they would like to see is that quality and consistency. Every country thinks they're special in some way, but from an investor point of view, they want to have confidence and they want to have quality reporting, which helps them understand whether they should make an investment in that country or not. Having international standards and a recognized profession is really important for inward investment. And there are various surveys out there. If you looked at real estate, JLL would be an example of one which shows a disproportionately high amount of capital inflow into countries that have transparency, professionalism standards. If you let's look at Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. So in Saudi Arabia back in 2012, I got a call saying, can you come to the embassy? We're thinking about starting something on valuation. What should we do? And I've partnered with people and including strategic discussions with the finance minister since that point up until now. So Saudi Arabia recognized that it didn't want to depend on oil and gas forever. It recognized that it wanted to create a more normal functioning economy with a good stock exchange, with top universities, top businesses. It wanted to become a key hub for businesses. And it also recognized that it wanted to attract inward investments. To do that, it adopted international valuation standards. It created a profession which included, very well qualified real estate professionals, business valuation professionals. So all the asset classes start to be covered. So that would be a good example. I'm not sure there's such a thing about it as ESG valuation. There is such a thing as valuation that considers ESG factors. But ESG has been thrown together. We've had CSR, corporate and social responsibility. Europe has its CSRD. We've got ESG. Frankly, I'm not sure whether it's, we should be lumping environmental and social and governance all together. They are all important aspects, but should they all be in one box? I don't know. If you look at the ISSB and what they've done, they focus on environmental, and there tends to be a lot of global agreement on the environmental. If you look at social, human rights, working conditions, if you were to go to any number of countries around the world, you would find vastly differing points of view on those. And getting agreement on some of those aspects around the world is going to be much more difficult even than the environmental side. In terms of addressing your actual question, which is, what misconceptions are there? Some people think it's about being woke, it's about doing good, all this kind of stuff. If you're looking at some of the tone that's coming out from America at the moment and the change in political dynamics, those are some of the challenges that are coming out. But actually, I personally believe it can make good business. So actually taking care of the environment, being mindful of human rights, having good governance, that just strikes me as from a non-political point of view, as doing good business. And I also believe there are very big business opportunities within that whatever the politics are saying in certain parts of the world, businesses will try and make the most of. And there are investors, as I mentioned before, that I've met who were very interested in all these factors in the companies they're investing in and the supply chain of those companies way back when. And that is acceptable to their stakeholders to potentially get a lower return, but actually they see the benefits of ethical investment. I think that valuation professionals will play their role in helping interpret what is happening in the market. And we have yet to see, what the impact of international sustainability standards will be. I personally hope that there will be a positive impact whereby investors see greater value in investing in ethical companies from an environmental, social, and governance point of view. But we have yet to see that. We're there to interpret the data that is provided by things like that. But certainly we will play our role in helping educate and inform valuers around the world from an IVSC point of view, which is why we introduced specific guidance in relation to ESG factors in the last version of IVS. We have a working group that is constantly looking at this and looking at how we should evolve this in the future. And so I expect us to continue to help develop the profession and help have an international approach in relation to ESG. Okay, so I personally believe that despite politics in one or two countries, ESG is here to stay. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because it will make our businesses more sustainable. It's amazing just looking around here in terms of some of the entrepreneurial stuff that's going on. Coffee grinds can make clothes. Pineapple leaves can make clothes. This is great. This is waste normally, but it's really great actually being here and seeing some of this in action. But I would encourage them to embrace, reporting, transparency, and try and take the most of an opportunity. If the entrepreneurialism in this room is anything to go by, then Taiwan, has a lot of appealing products and things for the international community. And if you look after those factors and you have a good business, then, the valuation side will look after itself. But it's good to see Taiwan looking at this actively, trying to have tools and approaches and be one of the leaders in ESG. And I hope that continues. The message that I would leave is that, look, capital flows are international. And if you want to attract more investment into Taiwan, you need to give investors confidence. And in order to do that, you need to speak the international language. I'm not talking about, the language we speak today, but I'm talking about valuation, for example. So I would encourage a good valuation profession that uses international valuation standards. I'd be encouraging the use of IFRS, which are already used, embracing international sustainability standards. So all of these things, if Taiwan is a leader in that and has a very transparent, open economy, then you should benefit from greater flows of capital coming in here.